it wasn't until my mother started dating this really abusive, violent man that I started to become what I felt was very enchanting and magical. I started to really fear my powers and not fear, but really get mad at God for putting me in this situation and my mom and my siblings. And so that lasted about 6 years, really witnessing her get beat in very violent, extreme ways. He burned down our house twice. He just was really an unwell man. He was in a lot of pain. And so to really numb the pain that I was going through as a very sensitive child, I started to smoke weed and drink alcohol at a very young age, at like 12 years old. And that shut down my connection with the spirit world.
Alrighty, it is time to stop hitting snooze and awaken to a life worth being, the fun and inspiring podcast that dives deep into what makes life truly fulfilling. I'm your host, Sue Willoughby, a self-proclaimed badass transformational life coach for women over 40. Join me as I explore the extraordinary journeys of ordinary people who've transformed their lives from the inside out. Tune in weekly to uncover the secrets to smashing through your perceived limits and creating a life that's not just well lived, but totally worth being. Welcome to A Life Worth Being. I have a very special guest today. Her name is Michelle Jeovanny, and she has an incredible story, an incredible journey that she's going to share with you. So I'm going to just dive right in. Michelle Jeovanny is a renowned spiritual life coach, mentor, channel, and successful entrepreneur who has devoted her life to helping individuals create wealth on all levels, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, energetically, and financially. With her unique blend of spiritual magic, Michelle empowers her clients to activate and harmonize their true potential in life, in business, and to help live a life of freedom, fulfillment, and flow. I love that. The 3 F's: freedom, fulfillment, and flow. Her specialty lies in energetics, ancestral healing, somatic freedom, ceremony, and spiritual power, supporting humans to unlock their potential fully. I am so excited to talk to you today, Michelle. We are going to get into some interesting stuff today, it sounds like.
I'm so excited to be with you as well.
Welcome from the other side of the coast. I'm in Seattle and you're in New York, so it's all good.
Yes.
Well, Michelle, I know that you have an incredible journey, and I know that at the tender age of 17, you hopped on a plane for New York and left the Dominican Republic. And I don't know if you ever look back or not, but you're still in New York. So odds are that you found your place, not without trials and tribulations. So if you want to just, fill us in since your life at 17 and
Yeah.
before that or whatever, but I'd love to hear your story and how you got to where you are, because you're doing some really incredible stuff that really speaks to my heart. So please tell us about you.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you. Yeah, my journey started as a little girl. I had this gift of really seeing and having this deep connection with the spirit realm. And it wasn't until my mother started dating this really abusive, violent man that I started to become what I felt was very enchanting and magical. I started to really fear my powers and fear, not fear, but really get mad at God for putting me in this situation and my mom and my siblings. And so that lasted about 6 years, really witnessing her get beat in very violent, extreme ways. He burned down our house twice. He just was really an unwell man. He was in a lot of pain. And so to really numb the pain that I was going through as a very sensitive child, I started to smoke weed and drink alcohol at a very young age, at like 12 years old. And that shut down my connection with the spirit world. And I didn't know that then. It took me years to understand that later on in life. But I tried in different ways to have her leave him. It didn't work. I tried a hunger strike. I tried running away from home. I got kicked out of schools, about six of them, and nothing really worked until I made this decision at 17 to run away for good. And so I left the country and I came to New York. And at the time, my clairaudient started to come online where I could hear my guides. And so music was a really deep way in which we connected through the time that I was really numbing all the things. And so they played this Frank Sinatra song in my head that I was, as a child, I wasn't really into Frank Sinatra. And I was like, okay, if I can make it in New York, I can make it anywhere. Got it. New York it is. I pawned a necklace, bought a one-way flight without a passport, went through
Wow.
customs and pleaded with this like authority and this conviction. Let me speak to your manager. I had done some research on if there was an American US citizen minor in an endangered situation by law, they had to let me come to American soil. And so that was my that was my plead. And when I shared my story with the manager, the customs supervisor, he was really moved and he had heard about my story through newspapers. They were published when he burned our houses and he would beat my mom in really public in public way in the public in very extreme ways. And so he had heard of my story and he was very moved. And so he put me on that flight. He created a paper so I wouldn't get stopped on the other side and he signed it and gave it to me and wished me luck. And I was in New York, Thanksgiving Eve, 1999, looking outside. I was outside. I didn't have a jacket or a coat. I didn't have suitcases. I didn't have a carry-on or a book bag. And I was just looking outside almost like when the adrenaline stops. And I was just like, what now? And so I made my way to the Bronx by instructions that there was a shelter there that would take me in. And so they also had curfews that I was horrible at time. I didn't have a clock or phones like we do now.
Yeah.
And so I always missed the curfew and I slept a lot in the trains and the parks. But spirit works in such divine ways. And so my friends from one of my dear friends and a few of them were getting ready to go to college in New York. And so they had emailed me. And this was a few months later. I went on a computer. We had like 15 minutes, a lot of time. And I saw this email from her that said, we're all going to New York. Do you want to come with us? We're going to college. Come to college, like come to college. And college wasn't even a thought when you're like trying to survive and figure out your next meal. And sometimes it would be days without a meal. And so that wasn't even a thought. When I saw the email, what hit me more was, oh my gosh, people are thinking of me. And that really moved me. I remember crying and just feeling like, wow, they didn't forget me, And so she did all the paperwork. My friends gathered all my transcripts from all the schools I got kicked out of. And
Wow.
within a week, I had a phone call from the dean of international students studies. And he said I could get you in as early as May. And that was February by then. And he's like, can you hang in there till then? And I said, got it. And there was a moment in the story where I was already applying for jobs because the woman in the shelter really took interest upon me. And this is all going to be in a part of a book that I've been writing called When Wounds Howl. But
Wow.
there was a moment where she helped me get all my papers in order because I was American. I was born here but raised over there. And she was like, bookkeeping. My mom was a big entrepreneur, and so I know multiple languages and finances and bookkeeping. And she was like, you don't belong here. Let's get you a job. And so she helped me get my first interview, and I got the job right away. But here's the catch. They offered me 45,000 as an 18-year-old to be the assistant, the executive assistant of this owner of a check cashing place. Back then, this was a thing.
Yeah.
Um, And
Not a good thing, but a thing.
it was a thing, yeah. And the first time, so my mom got news of that, and she came to New York and requested a meeting with me. And she said to me, if you take the job, you'll always be someone else's employee. But if you go to college, you could be the employer. And, when I'm running away and I'm this like renegade trying to get my mom's approval in so many ways and attention in so many ways, I didn't know what she was saying, but to get her approval meant everything to me. And so I said, all right, I'll go to college. I just need to get clothes and things. And she was like, got it. Come with me to DR for a couple weeks and you'll come back for May. And I didn't trust her then, but something said go for it. And I went back to DR for 2 weeks, gathered my clothing, gathered my most precious belongings, came back, and I started college early in May.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Chapter 1. Actually, that was like chapter 1 through 10. That
Right.
is an incredible story. I mean, to go through all that and just say I need to make that change. I know that I need to, get out of here. I can't be here anymore. And that's a lot. I mean, especially to go to like the biggest city in the one of the biggest cities in the world,
Oh, yeah.
definitely in the US, and I'm amazed you're still here. Congratulations.
There were
That was
definitely
incredible.
scary moments, but
I
I
bet.
was very creative and I always felt God's protection. I always felt
Mm,
safe in some way. Um, And when you experience deep violence, you also develop this intuition of like, stay away from that, move here. Like that doesn't
hmm
feel good. So I had that communication in that way. But I went to college, graduated with a triple major because I did not want to graduate, let's be honest.
I'm
So
just going to stay here for the rest of my life,
I
right?
just kept adding majors. And the first job well, I first applied to some government jobs, chickened out in round 4 of the CIA because I was like, not going to be a spy. That is not what I see for myself. But I ended up working in a stock exchange, the New York Mercantile Exchange. Now it's called the Chicago Mercantile. And it was really out of this deep desire that I had as a young child to make a difference in the world,
Hmm.
but I didn't know how. And I didn't know about coaching and mentoring or personal development or even spiritual development. Um, but I landed in this job. They gave me the offer the same day, and it was for the exact amount, Sue, that they offered me at the check cashing place.
You're like, but now I got all this college debt. Thanks a lot.
Exactly. But I loved it for what it was, a beautiful experience in the city, but I also hated it. It felt
Mm,
like a prison. I really wasn't able to access a lot of my creativity in that job. And
yeah.
so when 2008 hit, the whole economy went down, and we knew ahead of time because I was an auditor and I was also AIG's auditor at the time. But I really decided to leave. I was the only one from my department that chose out. I left, and that's when I also experienced my Saturn return. And so a lot of friendships, my relationship went down south. And I realized that my gifts started to come online. But I hadn't shared that with anyone because the first person I ever shared it with was my grandmother when I was really young. And she said, we don't share that because you get sent to the loony house. And so I attributed
No,
my,
wait. Let me just ask you:
yeah,
was your grandmother? Did she also have abilities like that?
I didn't know because
Oh,
that was
okay.
as far as we got.
Yeah. She's like, don't talk about that. Okay. Well,
But
it
when
sounds like, yeah. So, okay, go ahead.
when she connected it, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna be put in the crazy house. So I associated my gifts with like some kind of curse. And so we didn't talk about it. And when the gifts started to come online again in my 20s, again, I didn't share it with anyone. I was this big mystic in the closet, not even understanding what mysticism really was. But I it's how I kind of ended up in this work, because it was these whispers and these people that just were in my life, that just people that show up in your life for just that one moment and then disappear.
Hmm.
Um, but I remember being in a transformational workshop and saying to myself, when I saw not only my guides, but the ancestors and guides of people, is when I said to myself, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. So you couldn't get me out of that room. I became their best volunteer, and they developed me as a coach and as a trainer, as a facilitator. I just didn't want to leave those rooms because something was happening that I couldn't quite articulate yet. And so that was 17 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you went from working in the stock exchange to just being like, okay, the economy tanked. I'm out. This is clearly a sign, and you were paying attention to that once again. Like,
Yeah.
no Frank Sinatra this time, I'm guessing, but there. But there was a sign, and then you're like, okay, I'm being led in this direction. I'm being, drawn into this, and I'm listening this time.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. I think it's hard. And how old were you at the time?
When I was in the training rooms.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that was 17 years ago. I want to
Okay,
say I was like 28.
okay.
Yeah.
But you felt that calling again. You said your senses, your what did you call it?
The gifts,
Your
my gifts.
your
Yeah.
gifts. Yes, your gifts started to bubble to the surface again.
Yeah.
So you found yourself in this realm that you're like, I belong here.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't feel belonging yet, but I felt like there's something here. My clairs are opening up, the gifts are opening up. I'm seeing way more than I see out there. So I just wanted to be in the training rooms forever and ever and ever. And when you're also being developed in this work, there's a lot of
Mhm.
paying your dues in quotation marks. And so I wasn't getting paid enough. I was getting paid very little. I was working a lot of hours because I was working multiple jobs for the centers. And so it wasn't until I was flown to Spain with a group of people to start a company out there in the same work that I fell in love with the business and the leadership component. And so that's when I saw myself like, oh, maybe I can do this. And I started coaching, on the side for myself, offering my coaching, but it didn't click for me until I worked at the last center, when I just really was seeing a lot of incongruencies with the owners, and how the trainers really, you know, had to meet that level of incongruency to be able to keep the job, keep
Mm.
getting hired. And it was also impacting the students, because a lot of the scarcity was projected onto the students. And so I'm learning this work, I'm a baby in this work, and I'm also bringing a lot of my rebel nature that I learned growing up, right? So I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. This isn't feel in alignment. This is not the work we're teaching, but yet people are not fully living it. The owners are not fully living it. And so that was a moment where I was like, what do I do? Because I put all this time and years of training. Like, what do I do? And I remember my guides stepped in and they were like, let it all go, walk away from all of it.
Mhm.
And I was, and through a verbal agreement, I was given this non compete. So I couldn't coach or facilitate with adults for 2 years.
Mm.
So I created a youth program called Creating World Leaders. And I had my own youth center in the Bronx, and I had a team and partners, and it was just so beautiful. But we were all in our own ways learning something that we didn't know how to run. And so we touched and impacted over 10,000 students. But this is where a lot of the partnerships broke away. And the 2 years were over. And now it was one of the parents, and angels come in so many different forms. But one of the parents of the students were like, Michelle, your work is so powerful. Like, think bigger. And I remember my guide saying through this like this, I was mourning my youth center and I was grieving it. And my guide said, it's so much bigger than those four walls. And I was like, what do you mean? Because that's all I knew.
Yeah.
And then I was being led to like listening to people that were actually bringing this work outside of the training rooms into online, into different forms of trainings. And so I developed my programs, I developed retreats, and I met my husband in that journey. And we also established a business and then a different business. And it was all out of this like, we're not going to be the coaches that are just, you know, creating out of scarcity and moving from one offer to one offer, launches to launches. And I'm so grateful that he was such a stand for that, because at first I was just like, no, I got to go all in into this, right? But he was a stand of like, no, we get to do this from a very smart place. Like we can build other things that also fund our lifestyle where we're not just depending on that. And so it was a beautiful journey of like bridging spirituality and business,
Mm-hmm.
but also, you know, entrepreneurship business brings forth, it's a deep spiritual journey. And so it brings alive all the places that you get to really meet yourself and work through and integrate and like really meet yourself in that depth. And so we had a lot of mother wounds and father wounds that we had to like really, you know, move deeper into and stop projecting it onto each other. Because if you're a husband and wife and you're working together, if you're in partnership with your partner, it can be messy, it can be chaotic, and it was definitely chaotic for us in the beginning. And so lots of healing, lots of integration, lots of being my first and best client, my first and best student in my humble beginning,
Mm-hmm.
learning from others and what I didn't want to become. And so using that contrast to really get clear on who I am as a leader, as a entrepreneur, as a facilitator in this work.
That's amazing. I love how your guides have just been like kind of there and saying, you know, it's bigger than these four walls, or you're bigger than this program that you're in. You need to expand your horizons, because I do feel that people get stuck. They get stuck in an identity. They get stuck with feeling, okay,
Yes.
well, I already know, like when you were saying, I didn't want to leave those classrooms. I didn't want to leave those rooms because I feel safe here. And that's it. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. People, it happens all the time, especially with women, right? Where it's like, no, 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 I can't go out there. I can't go out there. But, you know, yes, you can. Well, no, I feel safe here. So I love that you're like, okay, I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm gonna try it, even though I know I'm gonna encounter some hurdles. And then working with your husband, yes, that's challenging to work with your life partner,
Yeah.
and have it all come out, you know, in the end. But let me ask you this: how do you so building or combining the spiritual realm, like you said, the ancestral healing and all of that stuff, with business is really important, because I feel like people don't understand that success comes from within. Nobody's going to hand it to you. And, you know, so there's always some divine intervention, if you want to call it that, if you're paying attention. So how do you work with business owners or entrepreneurs in that space of trusting the intuition and going deep or going inside in order to be successful?
Yeah, such a great question. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs, they come to me in different stages and different phases and seasons of life. Some of them have accomplished so much and yet feel so unfulfilled. Some of them are struggling with their business partners. Some of them have a lot of, they have paid a lot of prices with their family, with their relationships. And so they come to me in with different objectives. And a lot of them also come with this deep desire of more expansion, more money, more impact. And so it really has me attuned to like where they want to go, where they're actually at, and then we start excavating what's in the way. And we start looking at it from through the spiritual lens and the somatic lens of like what is stuck in the body, what hasn't been fully
Mm-hmm.
processed, what identity, you said it so beautifully, are they also so attached to? And how can we start to really weave and tend to that this inner temple to really create what we want to experience. And then can we create the body that actually fully receives it? So many people chasing metrics and milestones and money. And in reality, it's the block many times is that they haven't fully allowed themselves to fully receive where they're at and what they have. And there's a disconnection between presencing that awareness and that full receivership, presencing like where these things came from, where are they? Everything that we have was birthed out of relationships that came together, that weaved visions and desires. And sometimes, especially in the Western world, we are cut off from that spiritual knowing, that deeper understanding, that connection to the divine world, to the natural world, to the human world, where we're really present to everything that took place in order for you to have what you have.
Yeah, and I love that you bring the body into it from a somatic
Mhm.
standpoint. I work with horses in my coaching
Oh
practice,
my gosh, I love that. I love
and so
horses.
oh, they're so incredible, right? If you've spent any time with them, you know
Yeah.
how intuitive they are and how much they can teach us and get us out of our heads and bring us back into our bodies to help us build that awareness, right? And that level of intuition, because they're very intuitive. And anyway, sorry, I could just go off on the horses,
Oh, I
but
love it. I love it. I'm so here for it.
but it's a very somatic experience to be in the presence of a 1,200-pound animal that is giving you immediate feedback, not on what you're saying, not on what you're doing, but on what you're really feeling deep inside your body. So I 100,000,000,000%
And
agree with the body.
at times the identities that people have created to
Mm-hmm.
really survive and thrive in their own in their own world has them lie to themselves consistently, continuously, for decades, years. And what ends up happening is that there's a part of you that starts to believe the lie. And so now you're confused because the body does not respond to lies. And so you're
Mm-hmm.
in this conundrum of confusion and chaos and uncertainty, and you don't know how to trust yourself, and you don't know why because you forgot that you had been lying to yourself for so long.
Yeah, the stories that we create are incredible.
Yeah.
And that, once again, that's the beauty of the horses. They don't have those stories. They take in sensory information, they process it in their bodies, and then they let it go.
Hmm.
And they do it so quickly and all day long because they're prey animals, and they're, trying to assess, am I safe? Am I not safe? Am I safe? Am I not safe? And that's really kind of their existence. Are you going to cause me harm, or are you not? And so it's a really interesting way for people to see that in real time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
I love
so
that.
powerful, this work. I'm so happy that you brought in the horses.
I can't not bring in the horses. That's oh yeah. So tell me a little bit about like what it's like to work with you. So, you talked about the somatics, you talked about and I know that you have a retreat coming up in September. Tell me a little about for lack of a better word, I like to use the word container that you create for your clients and how you work with them that way.
Yeah, thank you. I work in different ways. So we do have these retreats. I have Sacred Alchemy, which is all about awakening the embodied alchemist, and it's a 4-day initiation into power, presence, purpose, and prosperity. Sacred Magic is all about the F's. And so it's about awakening the embodied magician and really trading in that archetype of warrior, over hustling, over giving, overburnt, like all the things that the warrior has been in fight for, to trade it in for this archetype of the magician, the one that really leads and walks and dances with God in this co-creation. And so it's all about freedom, fulfillment, and flow. I have a program for women that's coming out really soon called Flow, and it's the Feminine Leadership of Wealth Mastermind. And it's a
I love it.
hybrid. So it's a 4-month mastermind with a retreat. And my work really revolves around alchemy and magic tapping into the ancestral healing, but not healing like there's something wrong with us, like really reconnecting us to our ancestral power.
Mhm.
And then there's also the work of alchemy and somatic work. And then there's also the work of counsel, which is all about activating our purpose, our channel, connecting and cultivating deep belonging in our system, and then learning how what we say and do and think is always affecting the field. And so my work is also very business. I have a business mastermind that people can jump on. It's continuous. It's called Transcend. It's all about building the energetics for wealth on all levels, that deep integrity, the spirituality, the energetics. It's really custom. And so people bring in questions. There's 15 minutes of teaching at the beginning of each call. Um, but I also have private mentorship. A lot of people want to just have one-on-ones. I'm like that. I love one-on-one work. And so I love anything that's immersion and one-on-one, right? And so group containers I love, but I get why people would desire more support. And so I offer 6-month and 9-month containers. And then we always take a break after that. I'm not one of those coaches that you're just going to be coaching
Keep
forever and
going.
ever.
Yeah. Well, because it's like, and I also do equine body work. And so I do structural integration, right? And you know that it's like Rolfing, but Rolfing is sort of a trade name. If you worked with Ida Rolf, then you can call it Rolfing, but it's structural integration. And it works on the connective tissue. There is a point to my story,
Yeah.
and that is you do the work and then it has to integrate. So that's like what you were saying, where they're with you for 3 months or 6 months or whatever, and then you've got to use it. You've got to
We need a
integrate
break.
the work. Yeah.
We need a break without the training wheels. I need you to go in
Yes.
there and fail forward and then come back with more information. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in continuous because I feel like it can become codependent. And I always treat my students, my clients, we're equals. We're equal power, but different. I just have more practice than you, but you have things that you're probably a master than me. And so I really treat people in this. There is no hierarchy in my work. There's no hierarchy in my spiritual work. And so you need the break to go out there and get more information and really practice and integrate. And so I love that. And then the other offer that I have is ceremonies. So I do
Hmm.
private offers of where you come into my space and we have full 2 days together. And this is just reserved for people that have gone to my retreats and want a deep dive. And so this is such a beautiful way of like really customizing business strategy according to your energetics, really bringing alive all the areas of your work, your life, and create like a soul business blueprint for life as well to really move through and lead from this frequency that we've optimized during those 2 days.
Yeah. Excuse me. I love that. And let me ask you a question, if you can share.
Yeah.
Um, do you have a client that comes to mind who, when you started working with them, one of your biggest transitions, or that where somebody you've really seen them just
Oh
be
my
like,
gosh,
no,
I have so
yeah,
many examples, but the one that really sticks out, oh my gosh, I love her so much. So she came to me broken hearted out of a relationship that really rocked her, in a job that she really hated, in depth, over 50K plus, making like really to little no money, and just in the state of like panic and desperation and like what the f, like what do I do? I don't know what to do. I don't even know how I'm going to pay you. And it was a big leap of faith that she took, and we worked on and off for 3 years. And she went from this beautiful journey of life, and it's like the results that she has now. So now she's an investor. She has 3 homes. She's a real estate investor and broker. She always wanted to get married and have a baby and was freaking out about time eluding her. And I remember we had this like private day, and she also came and to the retreats. Like she was really immersed in my work for like 4 years, I want to say. Took all the offers, jumped into everything, and we developed this really beautiful sisterhood. She now lives 15 minutes away. She got married. She is expecting her first baby.
Mm.
And it's like to see the contrast of where she was to where she is now is just, this is why I
Wow.
do the work. I just love stories like this because it's a testament of what God can create through us when we surrender and lead with faith
Mm.
and action.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a great story. Um, and when you say when we surrender,
Yeah.
and I think, what is the biggest obstacle people have around surrender? If you can just speak to that. I know that there's a lot in
There's
that,
so
but
much. Yeah. Such a big question, but I love it. Let's go for it. I will
yeah.
do my best.
Okay. Okay.
I think the mind programs that we've been living in that create these identities of what we think is safety and comfortable, and a lot of times it's really uncomfortable and we just normalize the heck out of it, really creates this struggle to fully surrender. And some of my clients will be like, I am surrendering. And deep down, we know they're not,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a dance because the body has to create a level of internal safety to be able to truly surrender. And I describe safety, there's safety in the body, but I define safety different. There's trust and faith with spirit. You trust God. You have faith in the unseen. You trust life. You trust spirit. And when you're able to move from that, you're leading in the miraculous. Like you're living in it because anything that comes your way, you're able to like literally alchemize, move through whatever you need to move through, and then extract the lessons, the wisdoms, and then allow yourself to actually be like, all right, what now? What's next? What do I do with this? If this is the best story I'm telling, if this is exactly for me in my highest timeline, what is the timeline I'm designing? And then our leadership kicks in. When we have that level of trust and faith in God and that relationship deeply intimate with our divine creator, like we're safe. We're safe to be ourselves. We're safe to be clumsy. We're safe to make mistakes because we trust there's something beautiful unfolding no matter what, even if it gets messy.
That was great. You did an excellent job. Thank you. Well, and I like that, trust that you're gonna mess up and trust that it's okay to be a beginner. And I think a lot of people, going back to the identity piece of it, they've been wrapped up in like, I'm an expert in this or whatever. And to start something new, you're like back at entry level, to put it in business terms, or, you're starting at the
Yeah.
bottom again and you're going to have to figure it out. And I think that personally is a hard thing for people to give up because
And
nobody
we,
wants to be a beginner.
yeah, and we get to look forward to that. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
get to look forward to those moments where you are a beginner. You get to look forward to those moments because spirit has way more room to create through you than moving through all the shit that you think you
Yeah.
know? And so I am such a humble beginner. Like I have gone through so many trial and error. And I say to my students in the retreats often, like we have a lot of great sayings, but this is one I repeat often as well. Um, every master was once a disaster, and I am far from a master. Like I am shoulder to shoulder with you. There is no hierarchy. Do not put me on a pedestal because we're both going to be hurt by the impact. Like I'm learning with you. And I feel
Yeah.
like there are a lot of teachers in this work that don't do that enough, that don't say that to their people enough, because the pedestalizing, as much as they say they don't love it, can create something for their identity, a safetiness. And so I want to be far from that pedestal. I want you and I want all my students to know like, no, we're in this together. And there's going to be days I need you to remind me. like I'm reminding you, So yeah, we're on this journey together.
I'm going to totally steal that. Yeah, but
Go
may
for
I
it.
borrow that? Every master was once a disaster. I love that. It's so true. And I have been a disaster a lot in my
Yeah,
life,
me too.
and I love the journey, and I've learned to embrace that myself. And just knowing that when you go to take that next step, the stone will be there for you to put your
Yeah.
foot on. And that's not an easy task, but that was great. That's a really, really good mantra to have. Um, so as we're wrapping up here, Michelle, I could talk to you all day because this is beautiful stuff.
Same, same. No, you have beautiful energy. I love this conversation.
Oh my goodness. Where can people get in touch with you? Where's the best place for people to reach out to you? Because I know that this is resonating. I can feel it. I can feel it resonating out
Mm,
there. So where is the
thank
best way for
you.
people to get in touch with you?
Thank you. Yeah, people can get in touch with me through Instagram and Facebook at Michelle Jeovanny, or my website, Michelle Jeovanny. And for those that DM me from your community, just tell them to say if you're calling in from one of Sue's community, like just message me. I'd love to get in touch with you, and I'll share a freebie with you that is all about AI strategies and techniques that are really spiritually rooted for your
Hmm.
business and your life.
Not just about making 3D action figures.
No,
That's
no.
kind of the big thing on AI now. I'm like, oh my God, that's hysterical. But that's great. That's great. I love that because AI is here to stay, and it's not going anywhere. So we might as well use it in a socially conscious and
We get
spiritual way if we
to.
possibly can.
We absolutely can too. We get to bring the soul into this, and we get to create understanding that AI cannot replace you. Your authenticity is more crucial than ever. There's going to be a lot of people hiding behind the AI and all of these templates and posts that they're making. But when you bring your unique essence and your soul and a spiritual connection with God into these tools, you will be blown away with how much you can harmonize and optimize your flow in your life, in your business, in your relationships.
I love that. Well, we will put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
What is one thing you'd like to leave everyone with today? What is one thought that you can share with everyone? Not that you haven't dropped a bunch of
Oh,
amazing information
thank
and
you.
tidbits.
Yeah, I would say what's popping up right now is dance in devotion with your dreams. Like really dance. We're here to play. We're here to dance. We're here to move with God. We're here to dance with our creations. Devote yourself to your dreams. Like be in devotion to your dreams. And when the challenging moments come up, be in devotion to that too. Like allow yourself to be authentically where you're at, but be in a relationship with you in such a way that you are dancing, you are dreaming, and you're in devotion to the above, dancing and dreaming.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here today, Michelle. This has been a really beautiful, heartfelt conversation.
Thank
And
you.
for those of you out here that this conversation has resonated with, please share it with a friend and subscribe to the podcast because I handpick all of my guests so that they will bring you beautiful information and wisdom like Michelle has today. So this is it for today from A Life Worth Being. And go out there and dance and be playful and have fun with your life. It's your life and you are in control, believe it or not. Uh, thank you again for being here, Michelle. And I will see you next week on Life Worth Being. Thank you for listening to today's episode of A Life Worth Being. I hope you found it fun and inspiring. And to avoid a bad case of FOMO, please be sure to click that subscribe button. If you love what you heard today, please share it with a friend and then hop on over to your favorite podcast platform and return the love with a wonderful review and 5-star rating. It would truly mean the world to me. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and on my website. Links below in the show notes. I appreciate you, and I will see you next week for more fresh insights on awakening a life worth being.